Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into an eerie, highly classified, and honestly, largely unsolved mystery from the freezing, turbulent waters of the early Cold War. This is one of those stories where the lines between incredible bravery and catastrophic betrayal were tragically blurred, resulting in what can really only be described as an absolute meat grinder for Western intelligence.
So, what actually happens when the spies you train are betrayed by the spies you trust? It's a chilling question to start with, isn't it? But, to truly grasp the absolute dread and the staggering human cost of the intelligence infiltrations into the Baltics from 1949 to 1955, we've got to confront a pretty terrifying reality. The agents stepping onto those freezing beaches thought they were slipping in completely undetected, but as we'll see, the enemy was already waiting for them in the shadows, armed with their exact itineraries. Take a look at this quote. It brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the tragedy we're about to unpack. It describes a literal nightmare scenario where British and American intelligence just kept sending men to their doom, caught in this compromised loop of deception. You have to wonder, how did this happen? How in the world did a highly sophisticated intelligence apparatus fail so completely for 10 long years?
Section 1. Into the Baltic Night. The covert sea landings of MI6. Just look at the agonizing duration of this initiative. An initial British recon mission way back in 1945 ends with a capsized boat and captured agents. Yet Operation Jungle is officially launched in 1949, gets bolstered by CIA intelligence in 1950, and grinds on all the way until 1955. Guys, that is an entire decade of covert operations, repeatedly sending operatives into the deep freeze of the Baltic states. We really need to ground ourselves in the physical reality of what these agents were actually doing. These were incredibly dangerous, sensory-overloading sea missions straight into Soviet-occupied territory. Recruits underwent rigorous espionage, cryptography, and survival training in Chelsea, London. Then, they were handed over to an operation hiding behind the most mundane cover name imaginable, the British Baltic Fishery Protection Service. But trust me, there was absolutely no fishing going on here. Insertions were executed in pitch darkness using repurposed, high-speed World War II E-boats. And adding a wild layer of historical irony, these boats were crewed by German naval veterans, commanded by former German E-boat captain Hans Helmut Klose, roaring straight into hostile Soviet waters.
Section 2. The Secret Resistance Network. The Forrest Brothers and the Fight Against Occupation.
So who exactly were these exiled recruits trying to link up with out there in the freezing forests of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania? Well, they were looking for the Forrest Brothers. These were desperate, highly motivated fighters. Following the annexation and heavy occupation of the Baltic states by the Soviet Union, these guerrilla groups took to the dense forests to fight back. They were holding out hope, operating in just the harshest conditions imaginable, praying that the West hadn't forgotten about them.
And they were a formidable, if dormant, force. Declassified CIA files from 1950 reveal that American intelligence estimated there were roughly 5,000 of these armed guerrillas lying in wait. To put that in perspective, that's a small army hidden in the trees. The local populations held fiercely anti-Soviet sentiments, and the resistance even included former Baltic SS members whose primary goal was fighting the Red Army. They were just waiting for a more opportune moment, waiting for the radios, the weapons, and the leadership that MI6 and the CIA were so desperately trying to send them.
Section 3. A Mole in the Shadows. The Cambridge Five and the Betrayal from Within.
Okay, here is where the suspense really builds. Because while those E-boats were literally crashing through the freezing Baltic waves and agents were preparing to slip onto the beaches, a silent, deadly betrayal was already happening in the safe, sterile corridors of London. Enter Kim Philby. Philby was the head of MI6's Section 9, which was the exact department tasked with countering Soviet espionage. But Philby was a member of the infamous Cambridge Five. He was a Soviet penetration agent. He had the keys to the entire kingdom. Before the boats even left the docks, Philby was passing every single operational secret, every coordinate, every radio frequency directly back to his handlers in Moscow.
This slide perfectly illustrates the sickening, dramatic irony of the entire operation. On one hand, you've got MI6's objective: sneak in the back door, evade detection, and establish